This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. It's weigh-in day, Taylor Catterall too. They've just hit the scales and I'm joined by WBC featherweight world champion Skye Nicholson. Skye, first of all, how are we doing today?
I'm great, thank you. I'm excited. I've felt the energy in here today at the weigh-in and yeah, can't wait for tomorrow night.
It does have that big fight feel. Taylor Catterall too, it's 2 years in the making. Before we talk about yourself and the success that you've had recently, we'll start off by talking about why we're here. How do you see Saturday night playing out? It's a real tough fight to call, isn't it?
You know what? All week I thought Catterall comfortably, and now I feel like Josh Taylor. I mean, I'm not jumping ship. I feel like I've said a different prediction in every interview I've done today, but it is just one of those fights where it's really hard to pick. But for me, I won't be surprised now if Josh Taylor actually does win tomorrow night. I think people were writing him off. They thought he was going to be dead at the weight. I thought he looked great on the scales today. I saw him in the gym last night. He was in great spirits. He was singing, dancing, happy, which is rare for fighters making weight. So, no, I think he's in a really good place, and I really like Jack Catterall. I think they're both great talents, and I think it's going to be who shows up and brings their absolute best self tomorrow night is going to be the one that gets their hand raised.
I think one of the big things in the build-up to this is talking about obviously the weight making, like you just mentioned. We all know that Josh Taylor's struggled for years now to make the 140 limit. But like he didn't look phased at the way he looked like he's made it pretty comfortably. And I think that just gives us that real hope that tomorrow night we're going to see both of them at their A game, doesn't it? Yeah,
I think we are going to definitely see improved versions of both fighters from what we saw in their first fight. I think we're going to see a much better fight this time. There's so much on the line for both fighters. There's hate. There's a lot to prove. Obviously, Josh wants to prove that he deserved the win last time, and Jack wants to prove that he didn't deserve the loss. So it's all weighing on tomorrow night. But I think both men are capable of winning. I think it's going to be an unbelievable fight, and I think it's going to be who brings their absolute A game is going to be the one that wins.
You mentioned obviously the word hate. We know that they're not best of friends. They definitely don't see eye to eye. How important is it for not just the fighters but the teams to communicate with their fighter and make sure that they're not taking any emotion into the ring and that they're going in with a clear call and they're following the game plan?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're both professionals. They know that fighting with emotion is definitely a key for disaster, really. I think it's going to be very important for both fighters to stay level-headed, and I think they will definitely both be going into the fight knowing that as well. I can see how it could be emotions could definitely get heightened in there. They're going to probably be doing things to piss each other off, but no, I think that will be key in who wins as well. I think is who doesn't let emotions take over and fights the right fight and sticks to their game plan.
And where does the winner go from here? Because it's not like these are two young prospects up and coming. You know, they've been at the top level. Josh Taylor, former undisputed world champion. Jack Catterall, you know, a lot of people say that he should have been an undisputed world champion. Obviously, we know where the winner's going to go. Eddie Hearn's mentioned multiple times it's big fights next, world titles. But for the loser, is it almost? It's like winner stays on and the loser's almost just a bit done, really.
Yeah, I feel like it does have that feel to it. I think for Jack Catterall, maybe losing won't be the be-all end-all, but I think for Josh Taylor, there's maybe a little bit more at stake in losing this fight.
And we'll talk about yourself. Back in April, you were crowned WBC featherweight world champion. Just how honoured are you and proud of yourself that you set out on this mission to become a world champion? You've achieved that so early in your professional career.
Yeah, of course. It was a very special moment in my career. I think I wasn't overly excited because it's definitely not the ceiling for me. I feel like there's still so much more that I have to achieve, that I want to achieve, and what I've got my mind set on, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know where I'm headed. So it's the start of a very special journey, but obviously a very special night to remember. Yeah.
And when we look back at the performance, it was a fight that was obviously billed as the toughest test of your career so far, and you seem to have made it look easy in there. How do you reflect on the performance looking back at that night?
Yeah, I think styles make fights, and I knew that my food style was going to be suited to my style. I didn't really find myself getting out of second gear. But again, I had my own frustrations around that performance as well. While it was a very comfortable win and a shutout performance, I did feel like there were moments where I probably took my foot off the gas, where I could have done more. But again, I'm learning on the job. I'm 2 years in, fighting a former world champion. for the world title. So it's yeah, I can't be too hard on myself, but I definitely am my biggest critic, and I know what I'm capable of. I know what I do in the gym, so it's just frustrating sometimes when I don't show that in my fights.
Obviously, you mentioned, we know that you have had the ambition to become world champion. We know that you want to test yourself. Someone that you've called out to fight numerous times is Amanda Serrano. We thought we were going to get the fight, but then she appeared to have vacated the title. Before we talk about her next fight, there's still definitely desire there to fight Amanda Serrano, isn't there?
Of course, that's the big fight for me. Like, that's the fight anyone in the featherweight division should be chasing. She's the big name. She's got all the other belts. So I'm just looking forward to her getting this fight out the way with Katie, and then seeing what her plans are. I'd like to either see her start defending the belts, hopefully in mandatory challenges, but also opening up to the idea of potentially doing an undisputed fight with me.
And how do you feel she gets on against Katie Taylor? We know the first fight was a very, very close fight. It was a Fight of the Year candidate. How do you see the rematch playing out?
For me, I think Katie wins more convincingly this time. I think the extra weight is a little bit much for a featherweight coming up. I think based off their last couple of performances, we've seen a better Katie Taylor than we have an Amanda Serrano. I think Amanda's been fighting lower level opponents and not overly impressing, whereas Katie, obviously, she suffered her first defeat in a great fight against Chantel Cameron, and then the turnaround and the comeback in her last fight. I think just the level that she's fighting at and the performance that she put in, I favour Katie to win. I wouldn't say a wide points decision, but I think it won't be as close as the last fight.
And just sticking with that card, I suppose, the headliner of the night, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. I think if you said to anyone back in, I'd say when Jake Paul first entered boxing that he'd be stepping in the ring with Mike Tyson, we'd all be like, surely not, but it's mad how the world works, and here we are. What do you make of, especially with it being sanctioned as a pro fight, what do you make of that fight?
I've learned in boxing, never say never. I just feel like everything that could never happen actually happens. It's quite funny, but a prediction for the fight's hard for me. I haven't seen much of Mike Tyson, obviously, in the last, 20 years? Yeah. So it's hard to really say. I heard it wasn't going to be a real fight. Now it is going to be a real fight. So it's all a bit, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel sad for, I guess, the sport when fighters like Mike Tyson come out of retirement, especially how long it's been to fight a young prospect.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost disrespectful, and it's just not. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't really sit well with me, but I hope they put on a great performance and they both come out safe, obviously. You're right. Yeah, I just hope that it's a positive outcome, whatever happens at the end of it. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about that fight.
And then very lastly, I just want to quickly talk about Fury Usyk. Not necessarily the fight itself, but we've seen the corner, and Tyson was very quick to get into post-fight press conference and say that he was unhappy with the corner, and there was a bit of confusion. As a fighter, how do you feel a corner should be run, especially looking at that? It's clear that it's not worked. So how do you feel the corner should have been ran?
Yeah, look, I think it would be very frustrating for Tyson. He's in probably the hardest fight of his life. He's got amazing boxing brains in his corner, and everyone's yelling over everyone. I think there was 5 people in his corner, which I'm pretty sure isn't even allowed. But it was just like voices, yelling, people all in his face, and I just feel like you've got 2 amazing boxing brains in Sugar and Andy Lee in your corner, and there's just mayhem going on. So I can definitely understand how frustrating that would have been, and I'm sure that is something that will be addressed in Tyson's camp going into the rematch. But yeah, definitely something that could have been avoided, and hopefully doesn't happen again.
And if the corner issues are all fixed going into the rematch, how do you feel a rematch would play out between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk?
Look, I don't think you can blame what happened in the corner for Tyson Fury not winning. I think Oleksandr Usyk is incredible, amazing. I think he's very, very smart. He's very patient. He's very good at what he does. He knows he's better in the later rounds. He weathered the storm in those rounds where things were not going his way. It's going to be very interesting, the rematch, to see what both camps do and change going into the rematch. But for me, I think Usyk was actually robbed of a stoppage in round 9, if I'm honest. I think it was amazing the way Tyson came back, how he did in the championship rounds, but for me, I think Usyk could even potentially stop him in the next fight, and I think he would have gained a lot of confidence from round 9, and I think watching the fight back, he's going to see that as well. But yeah, it's another one of those fights where you just don't know till they're in there. I had no prediction to give on that fight beforehand because I just felt like I absolutely could not call what was going to happen until it was happening, but yeah, I think it's going to be the same for the rematch. It's going to be very interesting to see what both teams change, what they do for the rematch. But I think we're going to see another amazing night.
Skye, thank you very much for your time. I know it's been a while since the weigh-in finished, so thank you for sticking around. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. See ya.